John Boscowan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The ACT Party will be supporting this bill. However, once again, we have major reservations about placing a limit of $300,000 on what a third party or a group of individuals can spend to promote one of the four alternatives. Sir, I'd like to go back and listen to the speech of the previous speaker again very clearly, because I was somewhat surprised by her comment that buying advertising to distort messages. It might surprise the member to know that the Green Party spent $1.5 million at the last election, and I wonder if she's prepared to concede that the Green Party spent $1.5 million trying to distort the truth. Sir, the reason that the ACT Party will be supporting this...
Point of order, the Catherine Delahunty.
I think that it is quite offensive to say that we spent that money to distort the truth.
Order.
No, I don't. I think
Order.
It's really offensive.
Order. If the member has taken offence, I'd ask the member to withdraw that comment. I'd ask the member has taken offence under Standing Order 116, and I'd ask the member just to withdraw that comment.
Sir, because the member's taken offence, I'm going to withdraw that comment.
Yeah, well, you don't need to qualify it. I'll ask the member to continue. John Boscowan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, let me just come back and perhaps clarify what I was saying, because the member talked about spending money, organisations, individuals grouping together, coming and raising money to spend the money. And as I say, Mr Speaker, I was quite keen to actually go back and listen to that speech again, because I'm sure I heard the word distort. I'm sure I heard the word distort, and if the member is suggesting that individual groups, organisations who may want to participate in the election protests, and she's suggesting they want to distort the truth, all I'm suggesting, Mr Speaker, how do we know that the Green Party didn't spend $1.5 million also distorting the truth? And what makes the paid messages of the Green Party any different from the paid advertising messages of any other party or any other organisation, sir, that wants to participate in the electoral process? And I note that you referred to Rod Donald, the late Rod Donald. Well, he was a person who wanted to encourage New Zealanders to participate in the process. Sir, let's look at this $300,000 limit, because we just heard another interjection from the Green member who says, but not the rich people. And I think that was the point that Pete Hodgson was trying to make. He said, why does the ACT Party have such an objection to restricting people to $300,000, sir? Well, it's not as though it's one individual. There can be organisations who form to push one or more of the particular four electoral options. I think Mr Hodgson actually conceded that there could be a group of people, I think he used the words clubbing together, a group of people clubbing together. And so I expressed the ACT Party's objection to the $300,000 limit in the context of what the major political parties could spend in their own campaigns. And I noticed that in Mr Hodgson's response, he said, well, yes, you could spend that, but possibly in reality you'd spend substantially less. Well, it might surprise Mr Hodgson that if one looks at just the core spending of the Labour Party, ignoring the broadcasting, ignoring what the party spent, the Labour Party at the last election was entitled to spend $2.4 million, yet it spent $2.271. Within $130,000 the maximum, within $130,000. So let's come back to this $300,000 limit, but also let's come back as to why we're having this referendum. And I think that Amy Adams put the reasons for having the referendum very, very well. She said that most New Zealanders had a perception that there would be a second referendum. Most people, if you asked them honestly, they would say they were going to get a second vote. But she said, of course, they didn't look at the fine print, the little asterisk to the footnote that said only if Parliament agrees. And so what the National Party promised at the last election was to put this issue to the vote, and good on the National Party for doing just that. Good on them for doing that, and the Labour Party asked why. Well, what this bill is doing is it is enabling New Zealanders to express a view on their electoral system. And so ultimately that is the reason why the ACT Party is supporting this legislation. We support the right of New Zealanders to be involved and to express a view. We don't support the fact that there's been an artificial limit put on what groups who club together can spend, but nevertheless we support this referendum and we'll be voting for it despite that reservation. Interestingly, that Steve Chadwick said that $300,000 will buy a reasonable campaign. I'd like to remind Steve Chadwick that the contestants in the mayoral campaign for Auckland were entitled to spend $500,000. $500,000 to put your message across. And sir, what did we see? What did we see in the weeks leading up to the Auckland vote? We saw Len Brown on television every night, night after night for 3 weeks. And congratulations to Len Brown, because I thought that the television advertisements that he did were very good, and he certainly got the jump on his opponent, his principal opponent, Mr. Banks. But, sir, he was entitled to spend $500,000 to communicate with the people of Auckland. But we're going to restrict the people of New Zealand who want to club together to form an organisation, to form a support group in favour of one or more of the various options. We're going to restrict them to spending just $300,000. But I also thought that Steve Chadwick made another very interesting comment. She said the public information campaign that is budgeted to cost $5 million probably won't be sufficient, may not do a sufficient enough job. So here she is, she's prepared to say, the Labour Party's prepared to say, look, the state can go out and spend $5 million educating the public, but we're going to restrict any group of people who want to club together to vote for or promote one or more of the options to spending no more than $300,000. Sir, earlier this afternoon, Mr Hodgson made a reference to the 1986 Electoral Commission. He correctly recorded the fact that the Electoral Commission said, if you're going to restrict political parties, why wouldn't you restrict third parties? He also said that the Electoral Commission in 1986 put up the proposal that there should be state funding of political parties. I'd like to remind Mr Hodgson, we already have massive state funding. When we travel around our electorates, we're actually, the members of Parliament who are actually standing here today are paid salaries. In essence, they are funded to campaign. But sir, what else did that Electoral Commission say? Well, that Electoral Commission, in recommending an MP, said that there is no reason for the Maori seats. There is no reason for the Maori seats because if you have an MMP vote, if it is strictly proportional, each party will have in Parliament its share of the party vote. And the Electoral Commission in 1986 said there is simply no need for to retain the Maori seats. And so the ACT Party strongly opposes electoral seats based on a racial basis, and we'll be putting up an amendment in the committee stages, sir, to actually have a referendum on that very issue. If we're going to go to a great deal of expense to conduct a referendum on MMP, well, the ACT Party says we should actually be doing a referendum on Maori seats at the same time. We should let the people of New Zealand express a view. And, sir, Mr Hodgson earlier this afternoon said, why are we having a referendum? He actually queried if it was in the National Party manifesto. And the Justice Minister said, yes, it was. Mr Power said, yes, it is in the National Party manifesto. Well, I'd like to remind the national members in the House this afternoon that there's actually something else in your manifesto, and that was to abolish the Maori seats, to abolish seats that were based on a racial divide, if you like, or that were created along racial lines. The ACT Party strongly believes on one law for all. We don't believe that we should be having electoral seats, sir, and this is a tremendous opportunity if we're going to go to the expense of having a referendum on this subject to put that vote to the people of New Zealand and to give them a chance to express an opinion. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Speaker, we're up.
On behalf of the Māori Party, I'd just like to say that we support the Māori Sports Awards because we think it gives us the opportunity to showcase the excellence in Māori sport. We support